Fire up that canned rock music on a Broncos Victory Monday on Orange and Blue today. Andrew Mason here. Cecil Lammey will be joining me in a manner of speaking here as we get into three takeaways from probably the Broncos' biggest win in a long time. And yeah, there have been some big wins for the Broncos. Even this season, the comeback win over the New York Giants, the win in Philadelphia that really got the Broncos off the schneid when it came to getting a close win, changing things in terms of what they did in those close and late situations. But yeah, this one's different. Like this is different, right? Like it's the Philadelphia game started it because, of course, the Broncos, they had been 2-8 in one-score games from the start of the 2024 season through the end of September of this year. 2-8 in one-score games. And then they came back to beat the Eagles in Philly. And since that point, that started a run where the Broncos have been 6-0 in one-score games. And, of course, these aren't just one-score games. These have been tight one-score games. These have been 3 points or fewer. You've got Will Lutz with walk-off wins against the Giants, against the Texans, against the Chiefs on Sunday. A 3-point win against the Raiders. Narrow win over the Eagles. Narrow win over the Jets. So think about it for a moment. The Broncos, 2-8 in one-score games from the start of last year through the end of September, 6-0 since. That's a sanction to the mean. The Broncos, since the start of last year, now they're a 500 team in one-score games. So think about that for a moment when you also think about the Kansas City Chiefs, who were 12-0 in one-score games last year, and they're 0-5 this year. They're pretty much the same team they were last year. They're just losing the one-score games instead of winning them. Regression to the mean is a thing. A sanction to the mean is a thing, too. That's one of the takeaways I have from this, is that the Broncos, they are winning in the clutch. They had to figure out how to do it. But that Chiefs team that you saw yesterday, not much different than the one last year. Frankly, the difference between this November and last November, Leo Chenal didn't block the kick this time. The Broncos drove downfield to what should have been a win last year at Arrowhead Stadium. Bo Nix led what should have been a game-winning drive last year. He showed that he had it in the clutch with this team last November. The bona fides were already there. It's just that they finished the job. It was also interesting that there was still some nervousness, a little bit of a flashback for some people. And I'm sure some of you watching out there may have had a flashback as well. Nick Bonitto admitted he couldn't look when he was on the sideline when Will Lutz went out there for that game-winning kick, in part because of what happened last year. There was a little bit of football PTSD, as it were, for Nick Bonitto waiting for that kick. Sean Payton was certain. Not all of his players were certain about what was going to happen, but all worked out well. The Broncos, they're 9-2 atop the AFC West, sitting there with a yawning gap over the Los Angeles Chargers, an even bigger gap over the Kansas City Chiefs. For the moment, you're not looking at your teams in the division. You're looking at the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts. You're looking at the race for the number 1 seed, a race that's going to be crucial because there's a possibility that you could be looking at seeds 5, 6, and 7 in the postseason, potentially including the Chiefs if they can get some wins here down the stretch. And if you look at the Chiefs' schedule, they've got some wins coming in all likelihood. I still think the Chiefs, even though the tiebreakers don't favor them, I still think they end up in the playoffs. And so that's another takeaway I've got from this game is, hey, you might see the Chiefs again. Not only on Christmas night at Arrowhead, you might see the Chiefs back here in January. This could be a 3-act play between the Broncos and the Chiefs in the 2025 season. Don't be surprised if that happens. And so the number 1 seed could be crucial if you're looking at seeds 5, 6, and 7, potentially including teams like the Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, maybe the Baltimore Ravens if the Steelers hold them off. And also, with distance between the top 3 and the leaders in the AFC North, Baltimore, a potential number 4 seed. Point being, those top 3 seeds, you want to have the number 1 because it's going to minimize your exposures. I mean, you get a top 3 seed, you're going to have at least 1 home game. If you get a top 2 seed, as long as you advance out of the wild card round, if you're the number 2, you're at home in the divisional round. But with potential teams like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, and those potential quarterbacks in particular looming in seeds 5 through 7, or Lamar Jackson in Baltimore potentially in seeds 4 through 7. With these as possibilities, you want to minimize your exposures. You want to play Russian roulette twice and not up to 3 times for 3 rounds. That's going to be the value of the number 1 seed and home field advantage all the way through the postseason. Not just home field advantage, but only potentially having to navigate 2 games rather than 3 against what could be a very, very deep AFC field. Let's check in with Cecil Lammey. Of course, he's not riding live with me, but he's got plenty of thoughts on the game that was the huge Broncos walk-off win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Cease?
Mace, and what a great Monday, Broncos country. This is outstanding that the Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs and have a 9-2 record at the bye. This is great. Now, what are my 3 biggest takeaways? 1, this defense. I mean, my goodness. Say what you want about Kansas City and they don't have Isaiah Pacheco or whatever. We know that it's Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes. We know that Reid's record after bye weeks was almost flawless. We know that Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. If you want to be, negative, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, he is a incredibly talented quarterback that was frustrated at times by what the Broncos defense did to him. It obviously wasn't enough for the win. And Vance Joseph's defense just keeps doing it again and again and again against Patrick Mahomes. They always have a great plan for him. The plan paid off in a big, big way. Shout out to Jaquan McMillan with probably my favorite sack in NFL history. It certainly was awesome to see Jaquan help seal this game with his play defensively. I know there's concerns, the Riley Moss pass interference penalties, etc. Tight ends gotcha this week. As you know, Travis Kelce is tough to bring down. That's for sure. That's a tough ask for any defense on any given week. But just when we thought the Broncos defense might have the tight end thing figured out, it didn't seem like that against Kansas City. But they got to win, and that's all that matters. And boy, can they get after the quarterback. I mean, interior alignment. And just it's Zach Allen and company, but it's, Malcolm Roach doing his thing, DJ Jones out there, right? Q Robinson making plays from the edge. So the depth, the talent, the starters, everything with Vance Joseph defense was absolutely outstanding. This defense can shut down anybody. And it was fantastic to see in this game against the Chiefs. Point number 2. Second biggest takeaway from this Broncos game over the Chiefs, Bo Nix was comfortable. And I love to see that. With Bo Nix being comfortable, it's one of those things where his feet have to stay settled. He has to stay secure in what he's doing and then let plays develop in front of him. And it goes back to the Joe Lombardi answer from last week and the question about Bo Nix's footwork, and is that just something quarterbacks have to deal with all the time? The answer is yeah. I mean, it's a week-by-week thing, but to be able to stay steady, stay true, keep your base, climb the pocket, let those routes develop downfield, and boy, did they in a big, big way. Bo Nix looking comfortable was paramount for this Broncos team in terms of their offensive output, and it was great to see. Bo Nix had a great game, no touchdowns. Now think about that. Think about how efficient and effective he had to play in a game where he didn't have any touchdowns, but categorically he was great. Anyone out there can admit that Bo Nix had a great game against the Chiefs. So steady, so sure, so confident in the most high-pressure moments against a high-pressure defense like Spagnuolo has for the Chiefs. It was great to see Bo Nix being comfortable. So there you go. Final point, final key takeaway is thank you, Will Lutz. I know, Mace, don't spit out your drink that I'm talking about special teams, but when you have a Will Lutz, it just gives you such a security. And I don't know about you all out there, and Mace, you can tell me, I was not worried about that field goal at the end. I know it was the same distance. I know everybody's going to talk about that. I know that you're blocking, you're always a concern there and any sort of field goal attempt, but to have Will Lutz there being so clutch, being so key for this Broncos team, there's a reason why Sean Payton loves the guy. He was absolutely money for the Denver Broncos exactly when they needed him to be, and it was great to see there at the end. So I wasn't worried about that kick. I know some people out there were, based on the same distance and what happened last year. That was last year. Put it in the past. The Broncos are sitting atop of the AFC West and heading into a Week 12 bye, feeling great. Feeling great here on a Monday, and certainly appreciate you all out there, and certainly thank you for watching Orange and Blue today. So those are my three big takeaways. Mace, back to you.
Thanks, Cecil. Let's get that back up there. Get me back on screen there as Cecil wraps it up as he goes off to take care of some things tonight, and we'll hear from him tomorrow. It's funny that he talked about having total confidence in Will Lutz, and I mentioned how Nick Bonito was nervous. I don't think Nick Bonito was nervous about Will Lutz. I think it was just the operation and the potential for a block because it came up last year. That's the thing. And knowing that you have a team in the Chiefs that will have something cooked up for that type of moment, just like they had last year. We know that Dave Tobe, their special teams coordinator, scouted the Broncos, saw the weak spot at Alex Forsyth's protection, went right there, collapsed it through, and then made the play. That's the thing that I think that people were nervous about. I don't think you're nervous about Will Lutz there. He's been, for the most part, money, and you can see why Sean Payton trusts him. I mean, Sean Payton had 10 kickers in his first 9 seasons as Saints head coach. He changed kickers the way you and I changed socks. And then he found Will Lutz. And that revolving door stopped cold. That's pretty good. Says a lot about Will Lutz that he became Sean Payton's guy. And it says a lot about Will Lutz that he can handle Mount Payton and his eruptions and how, let's face it, he can be very demanding and difficult to work with at times, but he's figured it out. Will Lutz is the guy that I think if you could unlock the vault, as it were, I think you'd get a lot of stories about Sean Payton. I think he knows plenty from his time with him. And that's the interesting thing about kickers. Like, they go about their job. They're kind of on their own, kickers, punters, and long snappers, but kickers especially, because they can have the fate of the team truly riding on their foot. And it's a unique job. It's a unique type of pressure, and it's as much mental as physical. And Will Lutz has the mental timber to handle that role. Says an awful lot about him, and he's cut from the right cloth, and that's one of the reasons why Sean Payton likes him. It's one of the reasons why he's been so good for the Broncos over the last 3 years. Let's hear from our friends over at Ramos Law.
Today's episode of Orange and Blue Today is presented by Ramos Law, the official injury law firm partner of the Denver Broncos. Ramos Law was founded by Dr. Joseph Ramos, an attorney and ER doctor, to provide exceptional care to those injured in accidents. With a unique understanding of both medicine and law, the Ramos Law team is built to fight for you every step of the way. Experience the Ramos Law difference. Contact them today at ramoslaw.com.
Plenty to dive into. I mean, we're going to spend the week kind of not only looking back at this game, but looking back at the first 11 games and where the Broncos stand, and looking back and looking ahead. It's not midseason. We're past the midway point, so it's not the kind of midterm progress report, but the bye week is always a good chance to kind of step back and sort of look at where things are. And here's a good question. Do you feel like Sean changed anything he was doing to change what he's doing to help Bo? There was a little bit more of there was a little bit more up tempo at other points during the game than we've seen. I think maybe you saw Sean Payton start to kind of just meet Bo a little bit more in terms of where he's comfortable. Ben Powers, he'll be back at some point in December in all likelihood. So that's the timetable on Ben Powers has been mid-December. And that's what the Broncos have been looking at with him. So unlike with Alex Singleton and Pat Surtain, per the reports earlier today, that it's possible they could be back for the Washington game. And certainly with Pat Surtain specifically, the fact that the Broncos did not put him on injured reserve tells you that they were thinking about the Commanders game specifically with him being back. If they didn't think he could be back by the Commanders game, they would have simply put Surtain on injured reserve because it would have been 4 games. And remember, injured reserve, it's not weeks, it's games. So if they put him on IR after he suffered the pec injury against the Cowboys, he would have had to miss 4 games. So it would have been Texans, Raiders, Chiefs, Commanders. The fact that they didn't put him on IR told you that they were pointing to something less than that. So he's missed 3 games. They've been looking at the Commanders game as the point at which they expected to have PS2 back in the lineup. Of course, again, remarkable that Alex Singleton could be back in the lineup and playing for the Broncos barely 3 weeks after undergoing surgery for testicular cancer. Just tremendous for him. Just continuing to be a remarkable story. One thing I want to get in this because it is kind of funny here, of course, and the moment that went viral last night. Friend of the program, Adam Troutman, standing up and defending his good buddy Bo Nix.
First off, if you're talking about Bo online, you're a coward, absolute coward. But just want to say that and guard him a little bit. But I mean, it says a lot. You know, he blanks it out, and we talked about it this week. You know, we don't care what other people think. We know what we have in the building, and we know what he's made of, and we don't really care what people have to say. So, Dragon Slayer 69 with his 7-Eleven Slurpee in his mom's basement, I don't give a shit what he has to say, right? And Bo doesn't either. So, yeah.
Dragon Slayer 69. It's funny. There actually is a Dragon Slayer 69 on the social media platform formerly known as Twitter. Dragon Slayer 69 has not been active in over 15 years. So it's rather unfortunate that handle has gone unused. It's just that's a top 5 all-time quote for me in all my years covering the Broncos that Adam Troutman put out there. Just there was definitely in the locker room last night, definitely a sense of, almost like, hey, we proved something here. They, whether it was media or, especially national media specifically, or just people commenting around the country. But I'd say definitely some of the chatter from national media, I think, hit in the locker room. And I think Sean Payton was using that as some fuel to add a little more to the motivational tank for this game. To put a little of the nobody believes in you mindset in there. I definitely think there was some of that to just put that chip on everybody's shoulder to say, hey, everyone thinks the Chiefs are going to come in and beat you guys. Everybody thinks that. I think that was definitely a motivational piece that Sean Payton went to. It was definitely something that was on people's minds, that they were in the locker room, that they had it in them. And give them credit, it worked. It worked. It didn't hurt. Let's put it that way. It didn't hurt. Now there were tactical things that certainly had more to do with the win than that probably, but did it give maybe that little extra push over the finish line? Certainly. Now the tactical things, though. Let's talk about how bold the Broncos play callers were, Sean Payton and Vance Joseph. Let's first talk about Vance Joseph on the defensive side, because there are 2 calls late in the game that showed just how much trust the coaches have in the team and these players. That's my third takeaway. First, it's the Jaquan McMillan blitz to get the Chiefs offense off the field for that 3-and-out to set up the game-winning drive. That you're calling a blitz there against a quarterback and now it's 3rd and 10, but remember Patrick Mahomes historically carves up the blitz. Like it's a high risk play against a quarterback who usually takes the blitz, chews it up, spits it out. But VJ made that call, and Jaquan McMillan had something ready. He had something up his sleeve.
It's kind of a timing thing, You try to hold it as long as possible, You can see, like, some of the quarterbacks, they looking at the nickel because, the nickel kind of shows what the defense is in a lot of the time. So, I just try to hold it as long as possible. And you trying to find keys to when the ball is snapped. And I noticed early in the game when he was snapping the ball, his hands would come up and the ball was coming out. So I just timed it up. When his hands start coming up, I start sneaking towards the edge and just made a play. They didn't slide the protection. I just went in.
There are people out there who are saying that he shouldn't have said that because, well, now Patrick Mahomes is going to fix that. Like, Jaquan McMillan put it out there. And yeah, Patrick Mahomes is going to hear that and make sure that doesn't happen again. I think Jaquan was probably a little bit too honest. Sometimes that happens, that you're just he answered the question honestly and sincerely, and I think he was very proud of himself for detecting that. But now Patrick Mahomes is going to change that, and so J-Mac, he's going to have to look for another tell next time he goes up against Patrick Mahomes. But the confidence in your players to make that sort of call right there, to say, okay, we're going to do something that goes toward Patrick Mahomes' strength here. Says a lot about his belief and his personnel. That is understandable given how good the Broncos defense is, though. Like, ever since those first 3 weeks when the Broncos D especially against the Colts and Chargers, didn't play well. From week 4 onward, we've seen something different. We've seen this Broncos D truly be worthy of some bold comparisons. Then you go to the ensuing series, Broncos going for the win. You get to midfield, and you're in the final minute. I think a lot of us figured, all right, this is going to end with regulation coming down to, say, about a 50, 55-yard field goal for Will Lutz. Well, not what Sean Payton was calling for. Instead, it was time to go deep. And, the debate over, was there a false start? Was there an offensive pass interference? Hey, you can make the case that it could have come back. You can certainly make the case over the years that there were some Chiefs wins, including over the Broncos, 2018. There was a delay of game not called. These things tend to even out over time. But anyway, it was the call that was made that matters here. The confidence he's showing in Bo Nix and Troy Franklin, a combination that does not have a high success rate when going deep. But that's the call. That's the primary read. That's what he's going for here. And it came up true.
Sean had it was a great call, a ballsy call to throw a drop back there and get a 30-yard chunk play to put us right in the chip shot field goal. Great execution there down the stretch. And again, we've excelled in situational football this year, and today was no exception. And and shout out to Will Lutz, man. What a game.
Yep. Shout out to Will Lutz. But yes, they had the goods. They had the goods. And you have a coach you have a coach and a defensive coordinator who believe in their players. Even though the offense has struggled, even though the Nix to Franklin combination hasn't really worked effectively, there's a lot of faith there coming from the sideline. And another thing to take from this, one aspect that I've seen in the locker room after most of the wins lately, not the Cowboys win, but think about, say, Giants win, the Texans win, the Raiders win. Words like unsustainable, qualifiers on it, especially from the offensive side. Hey, that we can't keep doing this. We're going to have to fix this. There's been a healthy sense of reality from those guys about what needs to be fixed. That, okay, this isn't necessarily going to get the job done in the future. You didn't hear that last night. This was an unqualified win, even though it was close. It felt different. Forget about the record the Chiefs have, because you can make the argument if you really dive into the analytics and fundamentals of what the Chiefs are. You can basically say this is the same level of Chiefs team as it was last year. They're just losing the close games instead of winning them. Instead of being 12-0 in one-score games, they're 0-5. They're regressing to the mean on those. In terms of quality, this is the same type of team. So this is a very good team that the Broncos defeated on Sunday. And those guys know it. And it was a game that was on a knife's edge. Could have gone either way. Patrick Mahomes made a mistake that in a game that came down to the wire, that interception that he threw in the third quarter, an ill-advised throw, hey, maybe it was the play that cost the Chiefs the game. Who's to say? But the Broncos had things go against them. They played this game without J.K. Dobbins, and clearly they missed J.K. Dobbins, and that's something as the Broncos go forward, they're going to have to work around, because Denver got it done, but got it done without the ground game being the effective complement to set up the pass game as it had been in recent weeks. So there are things to be concerned about going forward, but that's not for today. This is about the Broncos marinating in a win that is as significant as they have had in a long, long time. Those are the takeaways from the Broncos win over the Kansas City Chiefs. A big Sunday, the start of a bye week. Did not hear from Sean Payton on this Monday. When it's a bye week, he doesn't do a conference call. The Broncos basically shut down for the week. They scatter. They're gone. They're off to the winds. So they'll enjoy the week. They'll enjoy the time off. But we'll still be doing shows throughout the week here on Orange and Blue Today. We're here Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So be sure and keep checking us out. There's plenty to discuss. There's plenty to dive into and disseminate as we take stock of where the Broncos are. There's a lot to be pleased about if you're a Broncos fan, and most of you are. There are some things that need correcting, and I would say if the Broncos want to be a Super Bowl team, there probably is a correction or two that should happen, and maybe a corrective loss at some point in the next few weeks might not be the worst thing for them. That perhaps you don't want to go into the postseason on a 14-game winning streak, that a loss might be helpful. A loss or two might be helpful. Remember, every Broncos team that won a Super Bowl had a 2-game losing streak in December. Don't forget about that. So, for Cecil, who is on assignment, at least from the live show, appreciate him checking in and giving his 3 takeaways. I'm May saying take care. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. If you enjoy the program, be sure and leave comments and keep them positive, or keep them civil, I should say. And appreciate you joining me here on this mostly solo edition of Orange and Blue Today. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.